The sky above the capital world of Velthis Prime burned purple with stormlight and distant war. Tower-sized spires of living crystal pulsed with energy, carrying the thoughts of an entire empire through streams of glowing air. This was the heart of the Scytherian Dominion, an ancient civilization that had conquered 1,000 star systems and ruled them all through strength, bloodline, and fear. At the very center of this world stood the obsidian throne. And upon it sat Empress Nyxera the Undying. For over 3 centuries, her reign had been absolute. Entire species had bowed before her. Star fleets trembled at the mention of her name. Her power was said to come not only from technology, but from the royal blood that flowed through her veins, a lineage believed to be unbreakable. Yet now, for the first time in all of recorded history, the Scytherian Empire faced extinction. The Empress had no heir, and her time was running out. Beginning, the impossible demand. I was a nobody, a contract engineer from Earth. No rank, no title, no destiny. I repaired communications arrays on frontier stations that most people never even heard of. When a Scytherian warship seized my transport and dragged me across hyperspace, I assumed I'd been mistaken for a spy. What I did not expect was to be summoned before the most feared ruler in the galaxy. They marched me through the halls of the Imperial Citadel in silence. The Scytherian guards were enormous, taller than any human, their armored bodies etched with glowing symbols of rank and conquest. Every one of them could have snapped me in half without effort. At the throne room doors, the guards stopped. "Enter," a voice echoed from within. "The human will not be harmed." The doors opened without sound. Inside, the chamber was vast and dark, lit by floating spheres of violet fire. At the far end, upon a throne carved from meteor obsidian and starbone, sat Empress Nyxera herself. She was beautiful in a cold, terrifying way. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver. Her eyes were twin stars of white fire. A crown of shifting energy hovered above her head, bound by ancient technology and living power. I dropped to one knee without being told. "You stand before extinction," she said. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The Scytherian bloodline is fading. Every royal offspring for the last century has been stillborn. My scientists have failed me. My priests have failed me. My warriors cannot solve this. Her eyes burned into me. So I turned to the one species untouched by our genetics. My mind struggled to catch up. "You mean, humans?" "Yes." The room chilled. "You came here for an heir?" I asked, barely breathing. "For a chance at one." She rose from the throne. The entire chamber seemed to bend around her presence. Thousands of warriors were offered the trial. All refused. They fear extinction through failure. You, human, have no such fear, because you do not yet understand the danger. My legs trembled. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not royalty. I'm just brave enough," she interrupted. A projection burst to life between us, an image of a world cracking apart, starships burning, cities falling into the void. "If my line ends," she said, "the empire shatters. 1,000 species go to war. Trillions die." She stepped closer. "So I ask one human to do what none of my kind would." The entire fate of a galactic empire pressed onto my chest. "Will you try to become the father of my heir?" The throne room waited. So did eternity. And against every instinct screaming at me to run. "I will try," I said. Middle, the trials of inheritance. The trial was not what I expected. There were no chains. No force. No ceremony that night. Instead, they brought me to a chamber of light and crystal where Scytherian scientists waited, along with priestesses whose eyes glowed with ancient knowledge. They scanned me, tested me, pushed my body to its limits. Gravity simulations. Neural resistance trials. Genetic harmonization experiments designed to see whether my biology could even survive union with the royal bloodline. Most species failed within minutes. I lasted hours, days, weeks. The Empire watched me. At first, they mocked me. A fragile human playing the role of savior to a dying dynasty. Many expected me to shatter under the pressure. But I didn't break. And slowly, the whispers changed. The Empress observed everything. From observation balconies. Through psychic mirrors. Through the silent reports of every scientist. She never spoke to me during the trials. Until the day I collapsed. My nervous system burned with overload. I dropped to the floor, muscles locked, vision tearing apart. The tests had finally exceeded my limits. I thought I was dying. Then I felt hands lift me. Not medical drones. Ha! Nyxera carried me into the recovery chamber herself. The room was quiet. Dark. Safe. She placed me on a healing platform that hummed with energy. You should have refused, she said softly. If I had, I whispered, barely conscious, everyone would die anyway. For the first time, the Empress's expression changed. Not anger. Not command. Loneliness. I have ruled for centuries, she said. Every ally I have ever had is dust. Every child I hoped for turned to ash before their first breath. My empire calls me immortal. Yet immortality is only another form of watching everyone you love disappear. I met her eyes. You don't want just an heir, I said weakly. You want it to matter. She did not deny it. Something changed that night. The later trials became less about endurance and more about understanding. Scytherian culture. Their neural bond rituals. Their royal inheritance laws. Their endless cycles of conquest and survival. I learned that an heir was not just born, it was shaped. Genetically, psychically, culturally. A child of the throne would carry the memories of countless rulers, embedded in living neural crystal. A human mind was not made for such weight. So they altered it. Prepared it. Prepared me. And during it all, Nyxera remained close. Sometimes silent. Sometimes distant. But always watching. Sometimes, teaching. She showed me the Empire from above, glowing worlds, ancient battlefields frozen in space, the graves of extinct civilizations that once challenged her predecessors. If I fall without an heir, she said one night, all of this falls with me. Maybe, I replied. Or maybe this is the moment your empire finally changes. She studied me for a long time after that. Then came the attack. A rival dominion, long waiting for weakness, launched a full invasion during the final phase of my preparation. Their fleets tore through outer defenses with brutal efficiency. Entire colonies burned within hours. The court panicked. The generals demanded Nyxera abandon the trial and take the field herself. She refused. The empire survives only if the bloodline survives, she said. I will not trade tomorrow for today. Instead, she sent me into hiding. But I didn't stay hidden. When I learned that the invaders had targeted the medical sanctum, the place where Scytherian heirs were shaped and protected, I understood what they were trying to do. End the bloodline forever. I stole a scout craft and flew straight into the war zone. I was human. Outnumbered. Outmatched. But I carried Scytherian shielding and a heart that now beat for more than just itself. I crashed through the enemy blockade by sheer chance and sheer stubbornness. I fought through corridors filled with fire and broken gravity. I dragged wounded Scytherians to safety. I overloaded reactors with manual detonations they never expected a human to survive. By the time the royal fleets arrived, the sanctum still stood. So did I. Barely. Ending, the heir of two worlds. They carried me into Nyxera's private chamber again. This time, She did not hide what she felt. "You disobeyed me," she said. "You sent me to hide," I replied weakly. "I went to protect the future instead." Her hands trembled as she touched my face. For the first time in centuries, the Empress of the Scytherian Dominion wept. Not for danger, but for hope. The final phase of the trial began days later. No audience. No empire watching. No pressure but the quiet gravity of what we were about to attempt. 2 species. 2 legacies. 1 impossible future. The bond was not violent. It was not forced. It was chosen. A joining of neural resonance and living energy that echoed through the palace and into the stars themselves. For one long, silent moment, the entire empire felt it. The Scytherian bloodline had changed. And months later, the change became undeniable. Nyxera stood once more before the obsidian throne, but this time, she was not alone. In her arms, glowing with soft silver light, was a child. The first living royal heir in more than a century. Not fully Scytherian. Not fully human. But something new. Something balanced. Something the empire had never known. The court fell to its knees as one. "The heir lives," the high priestess proclaimed. "The bloodline endures." The empress looked down at the child, then at me beside the throne. "You were the only one brave enough," she said quietly. "Not because you did not fear death, but because you feared a future without meaning more." The war ended within a year. The rival dominions withdrew, facing an empire not weakened but reborn. And I remained. Not as a prisoner. Not as a symbol. But as a bridge between worlds. Years later, as I stood on a balcony overlooking galaxies that once terrified me, the child, now a young heir with silver eyes and human curiosity, asked me, "Did you ever think you'd change the fate of an empire?" I smiled. I only ever meant to survive one more day. The stars shifted. The throne endured. And the future, at last, belonged to more than one species.